American singer-songwriter John Denver deftly fused pop, folk, and country music with unparalleled lyrics, a feat that few musicians can claim. Take Me Home, Country Roads, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and Annie's Song, the latter of which was written by Denver's then-wife Annie, were just a few of the numerous successes that acoustic singer John Denver made famous in the 1970s. At the age of 78, Annie Denver put an end to the speculation by confirming the rumors about her late husband, country music star John Denver. Without her renowned ex-husband, Annie Denver would be completely unknown to many. Her excellent background as a former school commissioner and TV personality makes it easy to see why the late country artist was also captivated with her. The Christian upbringing of Annie Martell and her three siblings, Linda, Terry, and Ben, began on September 6, 1946, in Minnesota, USA, to parents Jim and Norma Martell. She spent her formative years in Minnesota public schools before meeting the famed country artist at Adolphus College in St. Peter after finishing high school. When the two would-be lovers first crossed paths in 1966, Denver was a member of the Chad Mitchell Trio, a musical group. Denver was head over heels for sophomore Martell when they first met, and the two of them reconnected a few months later. In an episode of Mobituaries with Emo Rocca from 2022, Martell spilt the beans on their first encounter. After she told him about his time with the Mitchell Trio, her future husband told her about his time playing guitar in a goofy little musical with a group of folks. Martell identified herself as the girl who transported the signs from Act 1 to Act 2 on stage. She went so far as to say that her ex-husband can still picture her in the blue jeans, flannel blouse, and penny loafers that she wore that fateful day. After falling in love and exchanging letters, the happy couple was married on June 9, 1967, before either of them knew it. Their 9-month courtship came to a swift end when the pair announced their engagement and tied the knot shortly thereafter. John Denver's Annie's Song is a popular song that introduced the public to Annie Martell, who is now known as Mrs. Denver. The song's significance lies in the fact that it encompasses all of John Denver's passions during that period. His deep devotion to his wife, music, and, above all else, nature. Annie Denver just now gave us the confirmation we've all been waiting for regarding John Denver in this song. This song apparently still brings tears to the eyes of the 78-year-old widow. Among Annie Denver's favorite songs is perhaps Love, a collaboration between her ex-husband and Placido Domingo, which she also mentioned. Was there a private time when the two of them discussed something that inspired the song? Despite what most people think, John Denver's life-changing event was the catalyst for the creation of Annie's Song. You see, the country folk singer's 1971 was a pivotal year since that's when he recorded Take Me Home, Country Roads. While Annie's Song was certainly a career-defining smash, he had a handful of others. After that, the pair and a group of pals went camping in Aspen, Colorado. The natural beauty of the area quickly captivated Denver, who was already a huge fan of the outdoors. It served as the inspiration for another of his popular songs, Rocky Mountain High. After some time had passed, Denver and his wife relocated to the site where they had constructed their house and brought up their children. But one beautiful day in 1973, John Denver hurried home, moved by their environment. Annie Denver claims that her husband wrote it following one of their several arguments, where they decide to put their disagreements aside and come to an agreement. John Denver departed to go skiing in a cheerful mood. The melody struck him while he lounged on Aspen Mountain's Ajax chair. He jotted it down the moment he returned home. And it was finished in less than 10 minutes. It was originally presented to me by him as a love song. However, according to Annie Denver, he felt it was more like a prayer. Having this song as enduring evidence of Annie and John Denver's love is a comfort. The couple's inability to conceive naturally led them to adopt Zachary John and Anna Kate, two children they adored deeply. The love that blossomed between the two did not endure. After 15 happy years of marriage, the Denvers decided to terminate it in 1982 by filing for a divorce. Every narrative has an opposing viewpoint, and will investigate the causes of the split between the two sides. The country singer claims that his dedication to his career and the success he achieved had a profound impact on his marriage. He even goes as far as to claim that the couple began to drift apart in their latter years of marriage. John Denver, while he was at the height of his singing career, spent a great deal of time on the road playing concerts and other performances. That had an impact on his decision to divorce. During an interview on The Russell Hardy Show in 1983, Denver discussed how his relationship with Annie was impacted by his success and dedication to his work. "I believe we began to drift apart from one another during the previous 4, 5, or 6 years, he continued. Part of the problem was the time we spent apart and the distractions I allowed myself to become engrossed in when we were apart. And then an unwillingness to bend when we reunited to incorporate one another's lives into our own." His ex-wife claims they were both too young and naive to handle John Denver's meteoric rise to fame, which is why they broke up, in contrast to the singer. She felt intimidated by his fame and all that it entailed. She had lost all sense of self-awareness and identity as a result. Even though they had their issues, they divorced amicably. She is still single, while John Denver is married twice. Are you aware of this? The rumors of Annie Martell's passing have not come to pass. She is still very much alive and well and resides in her Colorado home with her children and grandchildren. Even if their relationship didn't last long, it's refreshing to watch a couple part ways amicably. Annie Martell maintained a cordial relationship with her ex-husband following their divorce. This comes as a shock to anyone familiar with the drama surrounding her ex-husband's life and death. More on that later. Given that we have previously covered Annie Martell Denver, it is only fair that we also cover John Denver, who was her ex-husband. Henry John Duchendorf, Jr. was born in Roswell, New Mexico on December 31, 1943. He became famous as John Denver, a country music hero. Henry John Dutch Duchendorf, Sr. and Emma Louise were his parents. His dad had an amazing record as a pilot and was very decorated. Denver remembered his father from his childhood as a strict parent who did not show his children any signs of affection. The patriarch's job required frequent relocation, so the family was constantly on the go. The many relocations of Denver's family didn't help his introversion. One thing he struggled with was always fitting in with his new surroundings and making friends. During his father's military service from 1951 to 1959, the family lived in Tucson, Arizona, for the longest period of time. He taught himself to play the acoustic guitar that his grandmother had given him when he was 11 years old. Despite this, he kept playing, and by the time he reached college, he had earned a reputation as a respectable enough musician to perform at local venues. Before Randy Sparks, who was instrumental in forming the New Christy Minstrels, proposed a name change, one that is easier to pronounce, he continued to go by his given name. Now he went by John Denver, and he kept playing even though he was a student of architecture at Texas Tech University in Lubbock. Denver was a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist in a folk band until he left school in 1963 to focus on music full-time in Los Angeles. It took 2 more years for Denver to replace Chad Mitchell in the Chad Mitchell Trio. At that point, the name was changed to Denver, Boise, and Johnson to reflect the 3 members, John Denver, David Boise, and Michael Johnson. At the time, Denver was performing at folk clubs. Let us skip ahead a couple of years. Denver decided to go solo after leaving the band. Rhymes and Reasons was his debut album, and it was released by RC with Daily Records in 1969. Milt Okun became interested in him after hearing a self-produced album he had put out with some of his songs, including Babe I Hate to Go. We now know it as Leaving on a Jet Plane after it was redone. At this point in time, Okun had also joined forces with folk trio Peter, Paul, and Mary to produce Denver's music, which gained popularity and eventually reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Denver version likewise reached the top spot on the U.S. charts. Cashbox Table from December 1969. John Denver conducted much of the promotion on his own. He went on a tour of the Midwest, gave out free performances, and even offered to play at local venues for free. This is something that many people don't know about Denver. He also visited radio stations that played his music, even though they knew he was the one responsible for the jet-setting theme. During his time slot, he was even given permission to play a couple of songs. The country singer's devoted following was a result of all of these things, and they stuck with him through thick and thin. Poems, Prayers and Promises, John Denver's 1971 follow-up album, was more commercially successful than his debut album. Tracks like Take Me Home, Country Roads helped propel the album to the top of the charts. While Denver's work with the locals deserves some of the credit for the album's success, Jerry Weintraub, Denver's new manager, also deserves credit for expanding the artist's audience through a radio broadcast campaign. Hits like Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and Annie's Song propelled John Denver to new heights of fame in the early 1970s. Weintraub also made sure he was on local television by appearing on as many guest shows as possible before he began hosting his own. His holiday program, Rocky Mountain Christmas, garnered over 60 million viewers. At the time, it was the most watched program on the ABC network. The singer's popularity skyrocketed, and he soon had his own BBC series, The John Denver Show. It would be remiss of us not to mention the singer's numerous honors, which include numerous Grammys and American Music Awards. In the late 1970s, when John Denver's star began to fade, the singer devoted himself fully to environmental protection and humanitarian work. His musical performances at the Aspen Camp School for the Deaf and his contribution to the $1.7 million capital campaign at Aspen Valley Hospital were both ways he helped raise money for worthy causes. On top of being a home, he also possesses the 450-acre WinStar Land Conservancy in Aspen, Colorado, which he uses as a wildlife sanctuary and a place for environmental education. Obviously, Denver's marriage to Annie Martell and subsequent 15-year divorce are well-known facts. We neglected to add that there was a somewhat dramatic incident that occurred during the separation of their assets at that time. Denver admitted at that time that he attempted to break their marriage bed in half with a chainsaw in an effort to drive home the point of their split. But sources close to the matter say he was merely trying to exact revenge on Martell for chopping down some of the family trees in Aspen. Before meeting his second wife, Australian actress Cassandra Delaney, in 1985, Denver waited a couple more years. They were married in 1988 following a brief engagement that began when he met her in Sydney. Delaney moved into Denver's Aspen house the year after giving birth to a daughter, Jessie Bell, in May. However, Denver and Delaney's marriage also ended in divorce, and their time together was far shorter than that of his marriage to Annie Martell. In 1991, they divorced, and the actress went so far as to accuse her ex-husband of being a cruel and nasty bully. While the exact cause of Denver's later difficulties is unknown, many attribute them to his divorce from his second wife. His first drunk driving incident occurred in 1992, and he went on probation after pleading guilty the following year after crashing his Porsche into a tree. Tragically, he failed to comply with the FAA's request that he cease drinking after his drunk driving conviction if he wished to continue piloting aircraft. Denver was deemed medically unable to fly the plane the year after. Subtle as he may seem, John Denver had a troubled past that drove him to seek solace in drugs and drink. Despite his outward confidence, he battled depression and was insecure on a personal level. He was frequently criticized for his problematic drinking and hypocrisy, and he freely confessed to using LSD and marijuana while penning Rocky Mountain High. John Denver understood his way around a plane, even though he wasn't as decorated as his father. It was even legal for him to do so. John Denver even entered a VH1 advertising contest because he loved flying so much. He was a heroic man. How then did he die such a terrible death? Did his plane fall victim to some sort of sabotage? Find out by continuing to listen. We need a foundational knowledge of aviation history and technology before we can get to the bottom of this. Aircraft, like all things, are designed to be sturdy and safe, but unlike cars, you can't just pull over if you're on fire, can you? Even a small amount of gray smoke from the engine might quickly turn into flames if the plane took more than a few minutes to come to a stop. A gasoline shutoff valve is often located in the cockpit of an aircraft. In this case, it would allow the fire to die down and not spread before the pilots could locate a field in which to land the plane safely. John Denver was flying a small, home-built plane called a Rutan Long-Easy. On October 12, 1997, when it went down in Monterey Bay, close to Pacific Grove in California, killing him. The man's age was 53. The crash's cause was the subject of numerous conspiracies and speculations. Many pilots make the common mistake of putting the fuel selection valve behind their left shoulder instead of in front of them. Because turning off the valve would necessitate the pilot releasing all controls, it was an ergonomic nightmare. Additionally, there is his fuel. A few gasoline gauges told him when he was almost out of gas, but they weren't linear and didn't have any markings, so it was confusing. Finally, the country singer's plane was really badly constructed, which is what caused him to crash into the water. The country singer did not follow all safety procedures, and the plane's interface was only one contributing element to the disaster. John Denver met a tragic end as a result of this, but his legacy lives on via the music he created and the humanitarian work he did, both of which have the power to inspire and transform people's lives. Just this year, his song Country Roads Take Me Home made its Billboard chart debut thanks to a Super Bowl commercial. In addition, on July 10th, the App Theater will host a memorial concert honoring the country artist. It further demonstrates that his music is still relevant and classic today.